Of course, work in understanding how the brain processes visual information continues. One of the interesting things has been sort of separating out there seems to be work in understanding that the layout of your visual field, the geometry of your field, is different than understanding what's in your field, that is the detection of things. And so notionally, here's an interesting little picture. The idea is that things come in V1, and then V2 starts to go up this area. This is the V3, V4 stuff I was talking about, that sort of does the recognition. This is sort of what's there. At the same time, there seems to be what's referred to as this action pathway, where V1 has a lot of projections into this V3, V5 area that's sensitive to, it is sensitive to shape, but the movements of shapes. And then, of course, there's always connections because there's connections everywhere in the brain. But the idea is that in the parietal lobes, that's a different structure up here, is more of an understanding of action. So you have this one pathway that's sort of the stuff that's there, and another one that has to do with sort of how stuff's moving or where stuff is moving. There's another whole cool area of, another cool way of investigating what goes on in the brain. If you presume that there are these different kinds of process steps going on in different locations, then you would expect that people who have certain types of brain injuries or birth defect issues or whatever, that certain parts of the brain aren't working, you would be able to find selective elements of their visual processing not functioning. We know this is true in language. Strokes in different areas can cause you to lose either semantics versus syntax. So what happens in vision? Well, there's this very well-known woman. She has this very interesting phenomena. She cannot see motion. So like she can't cross a street. She'll look down there, she'll see the car there. And then, 2 seconds later, she'll see the car here. But she has no perception that the car is actually moving. Okay, so she can't actually cross a street. All right, because she doesn't get any understanding of sort of that space-time evolution of things. So that, you could think of that as an example of, there's this part that's doing this motion and action stuff that in her brain is just not working. Remember, she recognizes cars and toothpaste and all the different kinds of things in her world, but she doesn't get a perception of the motion and the action. And this type of thing leads further credence to the idea that there's this separate pathway, this separate part of the brain that's processing this kind of information that obviously she doesn't have. So the idea would be that this action pathway shown here somehow is not functioning as well as it should in her brain.